Hi, and welcome back to Pittman's Pumpkin Patch, Pittman's Garden Patch. It is June 26th, 2018. This will be my first official video of the season. It's been a long time since I shot one. I actually did one back in March, but by the time I was able to even think about getting it up on YouTube or whatnot, it was so far later on that I just it's not even worth it, and it was outdated. So we're just starting into summer, about 5 or 6 days into summer now, and right now we're looking at my orange trees and also the dragon fruit. So there's one orange tree right here. This is the one that had, this was the, actually it's a blood orange tree, and it suffered a lot of leaf loss, almost lost everything. And so even though it bloomed back in the springtime, nothing set, and I wasn't surprised because there really wasn't any leaves to help with the photosynthesis process to support any kind of fruit. So you can see the darker color leaves here are the older leaves, and you can see the lighter color down here and up here. Those are the newer leaves. So it's putting on quite a bit. As you can see, the dragon fruit down here, I've had to prune off quite a bit. Ooh, that one was sticking way out there. Because it was there was a lot of diseases on them, so I cut them out, and they've really put on some good growth. I'm hoping to transplant them out here soon. And this is there's more dragon fruit in this one, and this one's my Satsuma Mandarin orange tree. Now this is the same one I was able to get 2 oranges off of for the first time last year. The oranges weren't all that great. They weren't very sweet, but I'm thinking that's because the tree isn't mature enough, and as it gets older the fruit will get better. But a lot of fruit has set on here. You know, a few of them drop off, and that's normal. But this has quite a bit of fruit on there this year, and a lot more seems to be hanging on than before. And it's just because the tree is older, it's more mature, it's stronger, so it's able to handle more. So looks like it's going to be a decent crop of oranges this year. We'll see if they all hang on, or how many of them do, but it's going to be great. Looks like I got a few dead branches here I got to prune off of here. Take you over to the apple trees. Not very many apples, but and some of them, of course, have already been attacked by worms and whatnot. So, but surprisingly, this is my what is this? My Fuji. I believe this is my Fuji apple tree. And no worms that I know of have attacked this apple tree. I got about 4 or 5 apples on here, maybe a little bit more. But I don't see any wormholes, which is unusual on that one. Now I had, this is my Honeycrisp, and I had maybe 1 or 2, I got 1, maybe 2 fruits on here. In fact, this is the only one I know of right here, and it's got a wormhole in it or whatnot, but it blossomed quite a bit, but nothing really set. And I think that just had to do more with the timing of the other trees that I have. When they bloomed and when this bloomed is off by about a couple weeks or so. And so, you know, I bought all these other trees, the Fuji and this one right here, which is the Granny Smith. I bought them with the idea of being able to cross-pollinate with the Honeycrisp, because that's the only way you're going to get any fruit on Honeycrisp. So, though I had quite a few blossoms on here, nothing really set except for maybe 1 or 2 fruits. on this tree. So I don't know if the timing will change later on down the road, or do I need to get another kind of apple tree that, you know, blooms a little bit later. But we'll see. I mean, obviously one was able to do it, but what I think is happening is that these other trees, the Granny Smith and whatnot, are blooming earlier than my Honeycrisp, obviously. But at the same time, there's a couple flowers on the other trees that are hanging on just enough that I was able to get 1 or 2 fruits on the Honeycrisp this year. At some point in time in the future, I'll have to remedy that as much as I can. So as I said, this is my Granny Smith, and I could see a fruit right up there. It had more fruit than this, that's for sure, but a lot of it dropped off. One thing I've noticed since moving out here to the country, a part of Virginia Beach, is that fire blight, which is a disease that attacks apples, and it's transmitted when bugs, pollinators, come in that are infected with this disease, carry it in, and when they're pollinating the flowers, it gets in that way. When I was in the city and had these apple trees, I would get fire blight, and I would have to, prune it out. But out here, knock on wood, I haven't had any of that this year. I've been on the lookout for it, and I was expecting it, but I haven't. So I guess the bugs here, at least the ones that were pollinating, didn't carry the disease. Oddly enough, I noticed that not a lot of bumblebees visit the apple trees, in my experience. Honeybees seem to be one of the better pollinators for apple trees. Now, that's not to say that I didn't see some bumblebees in there. I did. But, and I would go and I would smell the flowers and everything, and they sure smell very fragrant. This is my Jonathan apple tree. And, yeah, you can see a little bit of something on that one. But, it looks like on this one, worms have really, or rust or whatever's gotten on that. But it's funny because this Jonathan tree, apple tree, blooms after the Honeycrisp, which is kind of weird. So it's like the Honeycrisp, I can't win, right? So I got the Fuji and the Granny Smith bloomed too soon, and then I got the Jonathan that blooms too late for the Honeycrisp. The Honeycrisp was like right in between. Maybe one day they'll all get their act together and help each other out better. Turning attention, let's see. Those are the grapes. Really, nothing much over here. I mean, these are my 2 grape plants that I've had before. I do have grapes growing on the this is the Concord Grape. Of course, the Japanese beetles are out here doing their damage. I'm trying to do what I can to, and this is the red flame variety. And you can see this thing is really taking a beating. Much of it died off during the winter for whatever reason. And I thought it was dead because, the Concord Grape plant over here, it bloomed, it blossomed, it put out its growth on time, and all as it, spring approached and all that. I said, but this one right here, this red flame variety, did nothing. It sat there for about a month and a half, 2 months after this one. The other plant was already in full bloom, had leaves and everything, and this one just sat here and did nothing. And so I was ready to discard this plant and whatnot. And then one day I look out the window and there's a little bit of greenery down there. So I've had to come out and heavily prune it. And I'll let it hang on for another year or so and see what it does. I've already come out here, and this is my blueberries. I built this structure here with the bird netting attached to protect the blueberries. Obviously you will not get any if you don't. I've already come out here and harvested about 2.5 pounds of blueberries. The net was pretty effective. I did find 1 or 2 birds that got in here, and then I found where they were coming in. At least I believe I found all the areas and secured it up a little bit better. So they may have gotten a few. But I still have more blueberries. That particular blueberry bush right there, a couple of them actually, that one and another one, has suffered a lot of dieback over the winter time for whatever reason. And so I had to prune off a lot of dead branches, and it's coming back with a lot of new growth and everything. So it'll be interesting to see when we get into I guess December time and hitting into that late fall, winter, where I will notice whether there's going to be a lot of flower blossoms on this in next year's spring, or whether there's going to be more leaf growth. So we'll see what that does, whether the growth it's putting on right now is going to be enough for the plant to be able to support fruit later on next year, or whether it's going to need another year after that to continue its growth to regenerate and be able to support fruit. You can still see I got some blueberries on there, and these are ripening at different times, which is kind of nice. It's kind of nice to have these things ripening at different times, because you don't get a whole big flush of all of it. And you can just come in and pick a couple pounds one morning, come around a week or so later, pick another couple pounds or whatever you get, So that's awesome. Moving over here to my garden here. This was a patch that we opened up. It's only a 25 foot by 25 foot garden patch. These 2 empty rows here were full of radishes, and I didn't get anybody to buy any of my radishes really, very little. So it was like they were in the ground way too long and just they were no longer viable. So I got rid of them. I brought over with me when we moved from the city out here. I brought over some of my wood trellises that I cut down because we couldn't really fit them in there, so I cut them down, and I used them out here for my green beans. Now I got 2 kinds of green beans. I got pole beans, varieties of green beans, and I have a bush variety. So you can obviously see the pole beans here, and there's not much I'm going to do with them as far as they're just tangling all up on each other, which they quickly filled up this trellis very easily. And so I'm hoping that instead of just green growth like I've had before with this variety, I'm hoping that these flowers will begin to really open up and start getting me some green beans instead of just leaf growth. The other variety, the bush variety that's on the in the row on the other side of this trellis, is a purple variety. And you can see all these holes and everything out here, and this is where the Japanese beetles have been just attacking the green bean plants big time. Just shredding it. Look at that. Yep. So, it is what it is, right? I do what I can to try to get them. Over here I have my squash and zucchini plants, mostly squash. Not too many zucchini. These were just some old seeds that I had. It was well over a year old, right? Look at this stuff. Let me back up a little bit. I have been picking yellow squash pretty much on a daily basis, pulling about 5 or so off all the time. And this thing continues to just keep on putting on more and more and more. It hasn't really slowed down. And here's the other thing. If you guys who followed my videos before knows that I love to grow pumpkins. I love to grow them. That's my thing. Now these squash and zucchini are in the same. Oh, I see a nice big squash, yellow squash down there right now. Gotta be careful here because I'm sure there's lots of bees in here. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's not squash. That's a yellow leaf. See. Anywho, these squash bugs are a big enemy of anything in the cucurbits family. Squash, zucchini, pumpkins, watermelons, cantaloupe, honeydews, all those kinds of things like that, you know. Gourds, butternut squash, all those things. So, but I have not seen the squash bug out here. Well, there was one back in the wintertime that was in a jar inside the house for whatever reason. Don't know, but I got rid of that thing quickly. I haven't seen any squash bugs. I haven't really had to do any kind of spraying of any kind. Haven't seen the other dreaded enemy, the squash vine borer, which comes in here and lays an egg, a single egg, and it drills into your stuff and then kills your plants. I haven't seen any of those. Nothing's been affected at this point in time. I know that they have already been hatched and they're out there somewhere. They just haven't discovered my patch yet. So 2 rows of tomatoes here. Yeah, I got some work to do getting these things staked up a little bit better and get these branches pulled up and tie them on. But I got a lot of tomatoes on there. They haven't really started. I had only maybe a couple of them start to turn. I pulled off to let finish ripening because I figured the birds are going to start attacking them. I got some pepper plants mixed in here with the tomato plants. This is just kind of an experiment as far as just doing, you know, trying to save some space or whatever that I could. Though the tomato plants, you know, they shelter out the pepper plants a little bit, but I try to pick all the low-hanging branches on the tomato plants and get them off of there, so it allows more sunshine down to the pepper plants. Plus, it also helps fight disease on the tomato plants when they don't have that low-hanging branches that are near the soil. I can see a tomato right in there ripening up, but over here I have more onion plants, and over here more squash and zucchini plants, mostly squash again. These were all old seeds that were well over a year old, and I'm just like, well, you know, and look how these things, look how tall. Let me get down on ground level. I mean, these things are, you know, at least 3 feet tall. And they've not fallen over, but they're taking up some of this next row here where the onions are planted. So some of these onions that are tucked in there under those leaves are not getting the sunshine that they need for healthy growth. So they might just be sacrificial plants. But then again, I also kind of, inside of all those squash and zucchini, same as the other side, I have put in onion plants, just like you see right here in front. I put in some onion plants in between the squash and zucchini plants in an attempt to sort of experiment with, does the scent of the onions help disguise the scent of the squash and zucchini, so that, you know, the squash vine borer, which is a daytime flying moth, has a harder time finding it. Will it help against squash bugs, you know? But then again, there are other factors to take in. Even if this is successful, there are other factors to take in that could explain why, knock on wood again, nothing's attacked them yet. So we shall see. We shall see. Grass has really taken over a lot. My hope here is to wait for the 18-wheelers to go by. There to go. Here comes another. So anywho, my hope is to try to minimize some of this grass and stuff from growing back up here. Even though I come in and I flame weed, is to be able to, I have some landscape fabric I can lay down here. I'll have to cut it to size a little bit and try to help smother out the grass so that, you know, it's more manageable and everything, because the grass has really just come in here and has just taken over everything. So we'll see what happens. In other little news, as I'm heading back over here, in other little news, we got my lettuce starts in this tray right here, and this is lettuce that's been growing for a while, obviously, and I just haven't had any time or room to plant it out. Now, you guys might be thinking, well, how are you going to grow lettuce in the summertime? It's too hot. It'll kill and fry those plants quickly. And that's true. In that box right there, even though it says Home Depot, it didn't come from Home Depot, is some 30% shade cloth. So my idea is to build a little quick PVC frame structure down the row and everything, and clip on the shade cloth to help block out some of the sun. Okay. Now I have some 30%, and I also have, I think, 50 or is it 60%. So it'll be a little bit of an experiment to see which shade cloth does better. Because if you block out too much sun, then your plants get lanky, and then they're not going to grow properly because they're trying to get more sunlight. But if you allow too much sunlight in, and at least in the case of lettuce, then you run the risk of frying and cooking your plants too. So that's where that is. Now the other situation I got going on is that I have started right now to soak my pumpkin seeds, and I'll do a separate video on that in the future, but I'm right now in the house soaking the pumpkin seeds in some water, and I'm going to pot them up later on today, and get them to start to germinate and growing in pots, and then I'll transplant them out probably no later than the 4th of July or somewhere around there. At least that's my target date. That way they'll be ready and growing and ripening up through September and into October. So that's going to get started today, and the thing is I need to have some room for all of those things. Now, you can see my 25 by 25 foot garden is not really going to be big enough to hold a lot of stuff. Yeah, I got another garden at another place, but that's not in anywhere good enough shape and ready to go right now. So I'm hoping to get some work done over there, get things ready, prep the soil, and then go from there. I will probably have some pumpkins in here. That's why I'm leaving those 2 rows open for right now. At least, obviously, the vines are going to take over everything. So we'll see how that goes, and then, you know, at some point in time, I guess I'll be pulling out those squash and zucchini, and then if the green beans kind of fizzle out as far as their production, because they haven't really done all that much anyways, I'll probably pull those all out, you know, and just start, you know, letting the pumpkins take over and do their thing, and then we'll see what happens with the tomatoes and the peppers and all that kind of stuff. We'll see how that goes, and the onions. But, you know, I wish I had a bigger garden, at least for the pumpkin part of it, but this keeps me plenty busy, that's for sure. So I'll go ahead and sign off here. I know it was a long video, but I will do some other videos later later down the road here with the pumpkins and everything, and updates on the garden and stuff like that, and, you know, so we'll see how everything goes this year. And you guys have a great day. If you're any of my students or former students who looked me up on YouTube, hope you guys are enjoying your summer break, and stay tuned, keep in touch. If you have any comments or questions below, wondering about anything, just let me know. Y'all have a great day now. All right, take care. Bye.